Hello, my name is Ashley Simpkin, and this is a PowerPoint about my research paper of how development of digital technologies has affected cinematography and outputs. So, why did I choose this topic? Over the last 50 years, in general, digital technologies have been advancing at quite a rapid rate. So, for example, the use of virtual reality. This is used a lot in architectural visualisation now. So, for example, on estate agent websites, you can actually preview what it's going to look like instead of going to view the house. So you can do it at your own leisure at the comfort of your own home. And really, I'd like to find out if this advancement has changed people's perspectives on cinematography, like what cinematography was normally reserved for architectural visualisation, films, games, and other things like that. So how I approach this? I'll start off by creating a weekly plan. So this allows me to sort of delegate what I'm going to do per week, so for example, I'm going to carry out primary research one week, the next I'll be documenting it, or something like that. As well, from this I can find out relevant primary research, because if I just do research for the sake of doing research, there's no point in it, and I won't get any conclusions or answer any questions. What is cinematography? Well, cinematography is the art of photography and camera work and filmmaking. But I like to put it into the context of a different media product just to see how it's used. My secondary research, I've just put 3 points here of the main things that I found out. So, architectural visualisation has actually been used a lot more than you normally think. It began properly in the 1960s with collages and montages. Obviously this wasn't computer-based, it was a lot more sort of like pictures of like an interior of a house and stuff like that. However, in the 1980s and 1990s it began to shift, because computers were beginning to be put towards an average person, meaning that you had companies who had normal people that could make assets or could make architectural visualisation products to a basic degree using programs such as Adobe or Autodesk. There have always been a consistence of 3 main areas of focus. So the first it really began with is a concept and to show sort of like big ideas of companies. In the 1960s, for example, it was quite often seen as their ideas were quite radical. Immersion. This is a newer one actually, with the introduction of augmented reality and virtual reality. Like I mentioned previously, it's almost like you're there, so it's to immerse you, make you remember sort of what it looks like. Photorealism is one that's been around since probably about 2000s, a little bit after the computers being introduced, because a lot of it is, if people think that it looks real, looks like it's there, they could be swayed towards wanting to move in, whether that be a new housing estate or a pre-existing house. And the last one is obviously selling a product. This sort of links all of them together, because photorealism, if someone remembers it, they might want to purchase it. They use this a lot, like I said previously, in estate agents, which you don't actually have to go and view the house anymore, which is a bit weird to think of, but I think it's quite often used for student accommodation as well. So, my questionnaire. For the questionnaire I asked a set of people, both male and female, I think it was 15 questions. I will show you 3 videos in just a second, just to preview 3 of the 9 that I'll show. So, the first one, if I remember rightly, is a top to bottom. I can't remember what order I put this in. Yeah, so this is the very slow top to bottom camera. That's the first one. The second one's at a medium speed, right to left. And the final one is a bit faster, of the bottom to top. So I just wanted to show you 3 of these videos, just so you get a rough feel of what the people who partaken, I think, in the questionnaire would have seen. So the first question was quite basic. It was, what was your favourite camera speed? So from this, the camera transitioning from the bottom to the top, the favourite camera speed was medium and slow. So from 11 people asked, 5 of each both said medium and slow, whereas you only had 1 who thought fast was good. So to me, I think this is mainly because it makes the building seem more towering. So a slower shot just makes it almost look like you're looking up at something, whereas a fast shot you can't appreciate maybe the height or different elements of the building. The camera panning from left to right was a lot more dominant in all honesty. Medium, the medium speed, 6 of the 11 people said that this was their favourite. 3 said that fast was their favourite, whereas this time the lowest was 2 for the slower pace. This one I think was a little bit different because it's left to right, so I think the slower camera angle wasn't really in it for reasons mentioned prior, so it's not to appreciate what the building looks like height-wise or any big developments, or, you know, if I was to build the world's tallest skyscraper, you'd probably use the bottom to the top camera angle, whereas left to right might be for looking at a hotel block, for example, and panning across each side of it. And finally, the camera transitioning from the top to the bottom of the building. The most popular for this, again, was the medium. I think this was very similar to the previous one, for the sheer fact it is literally from one side to another. But it's not, again, it's not so much illustrating the height or illustrating power or anything like that. It's a lot more just, oh, this is quite tall and this is what it looks like from almost a bird's eye view, I'd say. The next question was about the camera transitioning from the bottom to the top of the building, and it said, which media product do you think the fast camera is suitable for? So this allowed me just to see what different media products they thought this would be good for. So the categories were films, documentaries, architectural visualisation, adverts, game, showreels, or environments. From this, the overwhelming amount of people actually said film. And I found a lot of people actually said a very specific genre of film. Action films was a very popular answer because normally you see in films such as, I don't know, Terminator, there's a lot of fast cuts and it almost just keeps it fast-paced and keeps the tension building. After that, game was the next big one, I think for very similar reasons. Because if you have a cutscene in a game, it's very similar to a film and you might want to convey a certain message. So if I wanted action or if I wanted to focus on a character, I'd preserve that for a slower speed. Whereas in an action scene, again, you'd want to use the faster pace. The next question is very similar. Well, it is the same, but it's for the camera panning from the right to the left. From this, it's a very similar answer. Film again. So I am beginning to find quite a few similarities between the questions asked, regardless of the actual camera angles themselves. Again, for action scenes in films, again, another one is Transformers. So where there's quite a lot of CG in that, you don't really see it that much. It's just very quick action. You have to try and keep up with it. And I think a lot of people, it put them off because in architectural visualisation, obviously you want to appreciate a product. And if you go too fast, you won't actually see what's going on. Yeah. And the final one is, again, the same question for the top to the bottom of the building. The results are very similar, and it just shows that a lot of people are looking more into the actual pace of the camera rather than the camera angle itself. And that's a big thing that I wanted to find out, to see if the actual cinematography itself was important for this. So, is it the camera angle that you use, or is it the different pace? And like I mentioned previously about the action scenes, and game, probably the exact same amount of people said that. So it's quite interesting to see if people's opinions changed based on what they saw in the speed of the camera. The next one was about the camera panning from the right to the left. Yeah, so the camera transitioning. Yeah, so I wanted to use a different graph just to present this a little bit differently, because I just thought make it a little bit more visual, change it a little bit. So from this was about the medium speed of the camera angle. And it's actually a little bit different, because a lot of people said that over all three that the medium speed was best suited for architectural visualisation. I think this was mainly down to because it was sort of long enough where it didn't become slow, tedious and boring. It gave you enough time to appreciate what the building would look like and how it would fit into the surrounding environment. A close one behind this again, especially for the middle one, is film. I think this is a little bit different to the other two for the sheer fact it's from right to left as opposed to up to down or down to up. So it gives a little bit of a different perspective. I think that's more if you, say, were to introduce a new character into something, into a film, into a game, you might have a slow pan from one side to another just presenting what they would look like. So, which media product do you think the slow camera is suitable for? So, very similar question again. This is just to see the rough scope. And again, architectural visualisation for the slower camera angles is the predominant media product that people think it's suited for. I think this is quite self-explanatory really, because I think a lot of people tend to look at pace almost subliminally. So I wouldn't use a certain camera angle per se if I want to show a building. It would be a lot more effective if I used a traditional camera angle with the sort of slower side, and maybe the, like I said previously, the faster camera is more reserved for a film or a game. What's your favourite camera angle? This is just a bit more of a general one, not really to do with architectural visualisation, it's just more of a general thing, just to see what people thought. Literally, exactly half of the people thought the bottom of the top camera angle was the best. I wanted this because I just want to see what people thought the best camera angle was, regardless of speed, regardless of the context it's been put into. So you can see a very close amount of people also said the right to left camera. However, the top to the bottom camera isn't so popular. I think that's because it doesn't have the same sort of effect. So from the top to the bottom, it doesn't present height, it doesn't present power, it doesn't present maybe what something looks like. It's more just almost a still image, but it's a little bit boring compared to the other two, I think, was the overwhelming response. Which camera angle do you think is most suitable for ArcViz? So I've asked about the camera speeds in the previous questions. I wanted to see, again, which camera angles. So this would allow me to sort of see what combination would be best used for architectural visualisation. From this, the top to the bottom camera one. So even that wasn't the favourite, a lot of people thought it would be good for architectural visualisation, because I think a lot of people aren't really entertained as much by the architectural visualisation side and more what they would see in a film. Again, something that they do on a day-to-day basis. Like I said, the top to the bottom is a good thing for architectural visualisation, from what I was told, that you can sort of see the top of the building to the bottom, and parts of the building you probably wouldn't be able to normally see. So say I was to present a hotel block to someone, or some sort of flat residence, you probably wouldn't normally see the roof, you probably wouldn't normally see what it's like from that up high perspective. So it just allows a different take on it, just so you can see something different. This one was, again, quite a generalised question. Do you have any prior interests in the subject? So this allowed me just to see if their answers were influenced by any previous experiences or anything that they'd done in the past. A lot of people said no. I think, again, this is because a lot of people have different interests. So I know a lot of people that I've spoken to have said that they do like games, they like films, and they like other things, and environment design's another big one. Whereas the whole architectural visualisation side isn't as big. Maybe a lot of people did say they were interested in the 3D modelling for prior interests, but they said they didn't have a prior interest in actual architectural visualisation. So the conclusion. In conclusion, the research I found, even though there's been a lot of advances in digital technologies, in the architectural visualisation and other media products, I found it hasn't really changed people's opinions too much. A lot of people are using the very traditional camera speeds, camera angles. I think you find some people who use different camera angles for their product just to make it stand out a little bit. Because if everyone uses the same, it gets a little bit monotonous and very sameish. So I think some people use it to stand out, however most people like sticking to the basic rules, and a lot of people have found this as just a normal principle.
Thank you. Anyone got any questions? I have a question.
Yes.
It's that last graph that you put up that showed people's interest in the study,
Yes.
in the subject area in architect visualisation.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of them didn't
Yeah.
have any prior interest. Do you think that has affected your results at all? Do you think the fact they haven't got any experience affects what kind of camera angle they might be used to seeing?
Yeah, I think so. I think if anything, it did help the primary research for the sheer fact that you didn't get to see it from a professional's point of view, so they don't know everything about it. They're almost coming from an outsider's perspective and sort of looking in, and that would get quite a large demographic of people that you'd be trying to sell a product to, because not everyone's going to have an extensive knowledge of architectural visualisation and cinematography.
So they've got any preconceived ideas? So okay. All right, thank you.
Despite them not having any preconceived ideas, what did you find based off of that in terms of the cinematography of this?
Like I said previously, I think a big part I found about it was people, for example, the favourite camera angles and stuff would be a lot more than what you'd see in things people do on a day-to-day basis. So, for example, maybe game, watch films. You don't tend to almost look at buildings every day in architectural visualisation. So I think it's more down to almost force of habit and what you're normally comfortable in doing in your own environment, in your own time. So I think that is just down to what you like to do.
And when they chose the more traditional ArcViz answers, so thinking the top to bottom, despite the fact they didn't know, why do you think they then still, in their mindset, referred to those traditional techniques?
I think it's just because it's been a tradition for quite a long time. So if you ever see architectural visualisation, you normally find that it is these sort of preset things used. You don't tend to see a camera swirling round the top of a building, or you don't get a bird's eye view. You tend to get just a nice, calm, relaxed building. And a lot of the time, top to bottom's for the exterior, and a lot of people reserve left to right, right to left for the inside of a building. So I think it's quite interesting to see how that changes people's opinions as well. I think if I were to do this again, I would include that a little bit more. So if it changes based on the interior design of a architectural visualisation product.
How were you able to compare the opinions and information you gained in this questionnaire from opinions to maybe before architectural visualization had become revolutionized by like digital advancements? How are you able to compare opinions from now to before then?
Yeah, so some sources that I looked at on the internet and such did have quite a lot of different ideas. So where it was just normally architecture before, so really before the 1980s, 1990s, there was a lot of sources from almost older generations who grew up without that. They normally preferred almost still images. So it's almost dependent on what you were brought up on as well. So that's quite an important aspect into it.
No, I think okay.
Okay, thank you, Ashley.